The India's Maslow hierarchy of needs is quite different on ground than everywhere else in the world. And the reason is, if you focus on the part of actualization of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we may find out that actualization happens by the system you live in, as the absence of accessible opportunities will lead to creation of newer opportunities by the state, hampering the growth and development of the individual. So here in India, the privileges give access to not just the information but the manner of application, making a sharp distinction between the usefulness of an abstraction and the futility of what one deems practical. So you might hear a lot of these statements that, oh, that's just philosophy, that's not how it works in India, or that's not it's what deemed practical in India. But there is a distinction that a system allows the individual to only self-actualize when the functionaries within the system are providing space for protection of rights, such that a ground of equal standing can be formed to deal with the happenings of the world and national events, as the current ongoing war between Israel and Iran. We might see that the Strait of Hormuz is blocked and is told to be blocked by Donald Trump. And the issue is that all of these happenings impact India very severely. But there's a deeper level of analysis which is underneath all of this. It is that education is, I would say, is the primary cause of all this instability. And the reason is education functions as the backbone of the culture. And keeping aside the WhatsApp uncles, the lack of quality education gives space for not only continuation of prejudices, but a cycle of destruction where awareness of rights doesn't lead to mass tipping point, as a desperation to get basic physiological needs is of a higher priority than the means of getting to the place. So, for example, this current Strait of Hormuz situation will impact India very severely, and if it continues for a longer amount of time, then India might even see a food crisis. But we have not prepared ourselves or educated farmers to not lead to a soil which is deprived of their nutrients by the more fertilizers that they use. So it's a cycle. They use fertilizers, it leads to poor fertilizers, low quality fertilizers, it leads to soil deprivation, and they require more fertilizers, and the cycle continues. So even the food is contaminated. So at the lower level of Maslow hierarchy of needs, the physiological needs of getting food is just not getting any food, it is getting quality food. That's the assumption. So having no access to that food, as I previously mentioned, that the absence of accessible opportunities would lead to creation of newer opportunities. So in India, the capitalism that functions in India is much more on the lines of, well, there is a problem, we'll build a solution, and there will be another problem, so we'll build a solution for that. Not because the solutions are not perfect, because the state is not providing access or a space for rights so that individuals can function as citizens, individuals can protect their liberties, individuals can protect their freedom. And from the development of the soil, from those fertilizers and the economics of the farmers, which is very poor, then we can see that at every level of analysis, it is the lack of education, it is the lack of providing space for the rights that has led to such point. And we can also see that in the functioning of the Noida protest, where the Noida people protested and the workers protested, not people, the workers protested, and they were charged by the police. And the reason was that they wanted to give, I hope that they wanted to give stability to the protest, but they were already stable. And the CM and the people knew, the ministers knew that it has not been hiked. So in Haryana it was hiked 35%, because the workers were demanding that, and they were only getting increased some few rupees in a year when the inflation has risen up and all the facts are against them. So the lack of education is not preventing the ministers, it is the intent which is preventing the ministers. So here, the failure of state to provide space for education will lead neither to physiological nor safety nor belongingness, as the esteem which is used for money and power. So the politicians and the ruling class, they are much more focused on money and power and accumulation for the few, so the actualization of the many are not there, because the actualization of many is limited by access and responsibility of the state and not the potential of the Indian youth. And even in the talk of India being the largest democracy, for example, we are proud of the largest part, not the democracy part. And the reason is that this largest democracy and the state functioning can be seen in the legal enforcement, economic impact on the average Indian, and educational quality. So, for example, in legal system, there is no provisions for false accusations. So, for example, the process in a legal system is the punishment. So, if one innocent is being falsely accused in any kind of a BNS under BNS section, then that will drag out for 10 to 20 years or even 30 years, and the innocent will be suffering. And in that particular kind of a place, the process becomes the punishment. So that's on the legal part. The economic part is the security is not guaranteed, neither for the protection of the workers' rights, and as can be seen in the Noda's protest, nor for the fact that how the war will impact us, because in the end of the day, the propaganda machine of the state will start to influence the decisions, as can be seen in one of the news channels that they have interfered Pakistan as one of the primary reasons for this protest. When Pakistan has very like Pakistan want instability in India, but that was not the reason for that protest. So the lack of education there, or where the majority of people are getting educated from the news, that's not even right. And for the educational quality, it cannot generate jobs. So at every step of analysis of Maslow hierarchies of need, the average Indian is so stressed out, is so desperate to exit this country that they want to go anywhere. That's why workers exit this place for Dubai. That's why high quality workers exit this place for Germany or Finland or Sweden. And the reason is that the state provisions are much more of a marketing machine than on a real ground implementation level for protection of rights and liberties. So when the education, for example, when 6 out of 10 IITians are only getting placed, which for the past 2 years, for the recent data was 20%, now it has jumped to 40%. And there's some of the causes can be attributed to the shifting global market, but there's a deeper reason here. The deeper reason is the educational quality. The educational quality is not great, and when the IITians cannot get placed, 40% of them cannot get placed, then what's the hope for the rest of the people who are going to tier 3 institutes? Majority of the students, there is none. So that's why in many colleges, I will be surprised if they even pass 30% of the students who are graduating and getting jobs, because the space for innovation and collaboration is being hampered. Therefore, the direct mechanics of the state and markets is seen in the functioning of the average Indian in their lives. So in today's world, a war in Strait of Hormuz can directly impact the gas prices here, impacting the average Indian. And so what used to be the talk of national systems, building national infrastructure, there is none. I mean, if there is some, it's not working. And this leads to a permanent stagnation of prosperity for masses, where the functioning of the average Indian is not good, and the accumulation of profit are in the hands of the few. Can be seen in the telecom industry. Earlier used to be 9 companies, now it's only 3. And this leads to greater instability of life, where coupling with religious wars, the average Indian is neither secure in the Maslow's hierarchies of need economically, not legally, and not socially. As one primary example of this is India is fond of merit. Crack UPSC, get to the highest position, not because they want to serve the country, because of the social, economic, and practical privileges that the position provides. So people waste their years of their life because there is no other way of getting the youth to a better place. And this can also be seen in the social mobility index of India, which is one of the worst in the world. So the system is not just toxic for life, it is a toxic for a hope for a better life. And that the hope for a better life part is where the desperation and struggle starts to become severe, as can also be seen in the UPSC numbers of the people that have attempted, basically applied for it, has risen up in the past few years. And this will also rise in the future for SSC and UPSC, because in the end of the day, Indian system works on money and power. And the more corrupt the system is, the the first thing that it attacks are the marginalized and the rights of the citizens. And unless and until there is no mass tipping point by education and by a proper legal system, by proper legal channels, then Indians will always stagnate. They will never rise up, despite what the reports will say, because the companies will be formed for education, for legal. They will try to adopt new technologies, but unless and until this system of corruption, of lack of education, will not be eradicated, the pollution will always be there, either in environment or in the hearts of the citizens, where they have to be getting to the top of the place and not looking at the means but only at the goal. So it's just not the war that disrupts the nation, but the lack of power the system provides to the average Indian, and the lack of power that the average Indian faces in front of law enforcement, in colleges, in schools, in workplaces. This makes the citizens not just the subject of rule of law, but the subject of the power of the few, who are going by the rule of rulers. And this makes the Maslow hierarchies of need for an Indian very desperate, where the physiological needs is not met, where the safety needs is not met. If they go for belongingness and love, it is ruled by the same market principles that masses are going to the few. And this is the combination of disaster. So you can see that every major country, every global country in the world faces some kind of a problem. But all those problems are somewhat sorted out in time. But Indian problems, I don't think will be sorted out of time, because they are not a problem of technology. They are not a problem of talent. They are a problem of a system designed by intent to not give direction to the youth, but only to subject that to the market influences so they can be bought for a cheaper price. So India may pride itself on a future market economy which will be a developed country in 2047, but that is just a hope. And as I said, hope for a better life in India is as toxic as it is right now for just having a life, because privileges in India only protects the few by giving them access to the information so they can differentiate what is the futility of what is deemed practical and what is the usefulness of their own abstractions. So if you have power in India, you are basically good. But if you don't have power in India, which are the masses, then you are essentially not in a place to build a better life. And that's the Maslow hierarchy of needs for India. I hope this helps.